There is a moment when effort stops producing results, when urgency loses its influence, and when desire no longer seems to move reality in any clear direction. Most people interpret this as failure or stagnation, but this moment is often the first sign that something deeper has shifted. Life does not respond to how badly you want answers, how much you push, or how urgently you demand clarity. It responds to internal capacity. There is a difference between wanting to understand something and being able to live with what that understanding requires. Wanting answers comes from tension. Readiness comes from stability. Emotional maturity is what determines what you are allowed to see, not because life is withholding information as punishment, but because truth reorganizes you, and reorganization cannot happen safely when your inner structure is fragile. You begin to notice readiness not as excitement or confidence, but as quiet steadiness. You react less. You tolerate uncertainty more. You feel less desperate to resolve everything immediately. These are signs that something inside has stabilized enough to hold weight. You do not see this because you asked loudly or waited patiently. You see it because you can finally carry it without collapsing.
What makes this difficult to trust is that the preparation phase is almost completely invisible. Long periods of confusion feel like wasted time when you are inside them. Repeated lessons feel like punishment. Emotional exhaustion feels like regression. But the unconscious does not work on the same timeline as awareness. It reorganizes first, in silence. Confusion is not emptiness. It is movement without language. When the same themes return again and again, they are not mocking you. They are refining perception. Each repetition strips away a slightly different illusion, a slightly weaker defense, a slightly outdated interpretation. This is why clarity so often follows exhaustion. When the system no longer has the energy to maintain old narratives, something opens. What felt like delay was not abandonment. It was training. You were being taught how not to collapse when truth arrives, because truth is not gentle to identities that are still rigid. Identity is one of the most powerful filters of perception. When it is rigid, reality can only appear in ways that confirm it. The ego is not interested in truth. It is interested in continuity. It fears losing control, certainty, and familiarity, even when those things are painful. As long as you are defending who you were, perception remains narrow. Deeper insight cannot enter because it would threaten the structure that is being protected. The psychological shift happens when defense gives way to humility, not as weakness, but as openness. You stop needing reality to validate your old self. You stop arguing for the version of you that once survived by certain stories. This softening does not happen through thinking harder. It happens when thinking no longer works. When you allow yourself to not know who you are for a moment, without rushing to replace the identity, perception widens. Doors open that were never locked. They were just guarded by certainty. This appears only after you stop needing reality to confirm who you used to be.
Emotional stability is the real gatekeeper of insight. Unstable emotions turn meaning into threat. When the nervous system is dysregulated, everything is interpreted through survival. Neutral events feel dangerous. Ambiguity feels hostile. Insight feels like attack. This is why answers rarely come when you are panicking, grieving intensely, or demanding reassurance. The nervous system filters reality before the mind ever gets involved. Calm is not the absence of emotion. It is the presence of regulation. When the body feels safe enough, perception expands. Peace often comes before answers, not after. This confuses people because they believe understanding should create calm. In reality, calm creates the conditions for understanding. The universe does not reveal more while your emotions are demanding constant protection. It waits until your system can remain present without turning truth into danger. When insight finally arrives, it almost always feels sudden, like a switch flipped, like something clicked all at once.
This creates the illusion that the moment came out of nowhere. But nothing meaningful arrives without preparation. The work that made the moment possible happens slowly, beneath awareness. Small emotional integrations, gradual tolerance for discomfort, quiet revisions of belief. Timing is not cosmic, it is psychological. Things arrive all at once because the threshold was finally crossed. Before that, they could not land. This was not late. You were still becoming the person who could live with what you now see. There's a cost to seeing clearly, and that cost is responsibility. Truth always removes excuses. It dismantles comfortable narratives that allowed you to stay the same while feeling justified. This is why many people unconsciously avoid readiness. They say they want clarity, but what they want is reassurance without consequence. Real clarity demands change. It demands that you live differently afterward. The fear is not of truth itself. It is of the responsibility that follows. When readiness arrives, it means you are willing to pay that price. Not heroically, quietly. You no longer need stories to soften reality. You can face it directly. You see this now because you are willing to live differently because of it. When readiness reaches this depth, something important changes in how you experience responsibility. It no longer feels like pressure imposed from the outside or a burden you must carry to prove maturity. It feels internal and voluntary. You begin to sense that clarity does not demand urgency, explanations, or dramatic action. It asks for alignment. The absence of excuses is not experienced as loss, but as relief. You are no longer negotiating with reality or postponing decisions through stories that soften discomfort. You notice that when a choice appears, you already know what aligns and what does not. The mind may still hesitate, but the body does not. This is how readiness expresses itself in practice, not through certainty about outcomes, but through coherence between perception and action. You do not need to convince yourself anymore. You simply stop betraying what you already see. This is also where the illusion of seeking begins to dissolve completely. Earlier, searching felt necessary, even noble, because it created movement and meaning. Now it feels unnecessary, almost exhausting. Not because growth has ended, but because the orientation has stabilized. You are no longer scanning for answers to fill a gap. You are responding to what is already present. Insight no longer arrives as something you must grasp or decode. It arrives as something that settles into place naturally. This is why guidance feels quieter now. It does not instruct, it confirms. It does not push you forward, it reflects where you already stand. The unconscious recognized this readiness long before the mind did, and awareness is simply catching up to a process that has been unfolding on its own. There is often a period here where nothing dramatic happens externally, and this can feel strangely disorienting. After so much internal movement, the absence of visible change can trigger doubt. The mind asks whether anything real has occurred, but this doubt belongs to an older way of measuring progress. External movement always lags behind internal reorganization. When the internal structure changes, reality must reorganize around it, and that takes time. What matters now is not speed, but consistency. You notice that old patterns no longer restart the way they used to. Old reactions do not escalate as quickly. Old fears do not dominate decision-making. These are not small changes, they are structural. They indicate that the foundation has shifted, even if the surface looks familiar. There is often a period here where nothing dramatic happens externally, and this can feel strangely disorienting. After so much internal movement, the absence of visible change can trigger doubt. The mind asks whether anything real has occurred, but this doubt belongs to an older way of measuring progress. External movement always lags behind internal reorganization. When the internal structure changes, reality must reorganize around it, and that takes time. What matters now is not speed, but consistency. You notice that old patterns no longer restart the way they used to. Old reactions do not escalate as quickly. Old fears do not dominate decision-making. These are not small changes, they are structural. They indicate that the foundation has shifted, even if the surface looks familiar. At this stage, truth no longer feels sharp or destabilizing. It feels grounding. It does not overwhelm you because it no longer threatens your identity. Identity has softened enough that truth can pass through without resistance. You are not trying to protect who you were, and you are not rushing to define who you will become. This space between identities is where clarity lives. It is also where responsibility becomes clean. You act not because you are afraid of consequences, but because alignment feels natural. You no longer need reality to reassure you constantly. You trust your perception enough to respond without panic. This trust is quiet and embodied. It does not require belief. It reveals itself through how calmly you meet uncertainty. The confirmation moment is rarely loud. It does not arrive as revelation or command. It feels like recognition, as if something you already knew has finally been named. This is why messages that reach you now feel different from the ones you encountered before. They do not energize you. They settle you. They do not tell you what to do. They acknowledge what has already changed. Searching ends not with a final answer, but with the absence of frantic questioning. A quiet confidence replaces it. Not confidence in outcomes, but confidence in orientation. You know what matters. You know what does not. You know when to move and when not to interfere. If this part of the process feels understated, that is not a flaw. It is a sign of maturity. Real readiness does not announce itself. It integrates. It stabilizes. It makes drama unnecessary. You are not here because you demanded truth or waited long enough. You are here because the internal conditions are finally right. Nothing is being tested. Nothing is being proven. This is not instruction. It is recognition. The universe is not asking more of you. It is acknowledging that you are capable of living with what you now see, without needing it to protect you, comfort you, or define you.